security door slammed shut just as Nia Carter pulled the black drive from the computer. She had less than 30 seconds before whoever was coming down the hallway reached the office, and the screen in front of her contained the one thing that could either save the Hawthorne family fortune or destroy it. A payment had just been authorized in the name of an employee who had been dead for 6 months. Nia stared at the screen and whispered, "Who is still paying someone who cannot possibly collect the money?" The footsteps stopped outside. The handle moved. Nia slipped the drive into the lining of her apron, turned off the monitor, and stepped behind the heavy curtain beside the windows. The office door opened slowly, and a man entered without turning on the lights. He crossed directly to the desk. He knew exactly where to look. Nia held her breath as he opened the drawer where the financial records had been kept only minutes earlier. He searched once, then twice, and finally muttered, "She found it." Nia's eyes widened. He knew about her. The man left without discovering her, but he did not close the door completely. That was what frightened her most. He wanted her to know he had been there. 3 hours earlier, Nia had walked into Hawthorne Estate believing she had accepted an ordinary housekeeping job. She was wrong. "Move faster." Nia looked up from the silver tray in her hands and saw Ethan Hawthorne standing at the end of the dining room. A housekeeper named Evelyn Price was struggling to replace a glass that had slipped from its holder. "I'm sorry, Mr. Hawthorne," Evelyn said. "The delivery came late, and I had to. I didn't ask for an explanation." Ethan picked up the replacement glass and held it between 2 fingers. "You were supposed to have this room ready at 8. "It was ready at 8, Evelyn replied quietly. "The glass broke when your guest." Ethan dropped the glass onto the table. "Are you correcting me?" Nobody moved. Nia noticed 3 employees looking at the floor. Evelyn swallowed. "No, sir." "Good. Then pack your things." Evelyn stared at him. "Please, sir. I've worked here for 11 years. And now you won't work here for 12. Ethan walked away. Nia watched Evelyn lower her head, and then she noticed something that made her stop. Evelyn's access badge was still clipped to her uniform. The accusation Ethan had made involved a restricted hallway, but the badge on Evelyn's chest showed she had never entered that hallway that morning. Nia quietly said, "That doesn't make sense." Evelyn looked at her. "Don't say that where he can hear you." "Why?" "Because people who question his decisions don't stay." Evelyn removed her badge and slipped it into her pocket. Then she leaned closer. "They're using our names." Nia frowned. "Who is?" Evelyn looked toward the doorway. "I don't know." Before she could say more, Ethan called from the corridor. "Evelyn." She straightened immediately. Nia watched her walk away with the badge still hidden in her hand. By lunchtime, Evelyn was gone. By 3 o'clock, Nia had learned that she was not the first employee to disappear from the estate under a suspicious accusation. She found that out because the household payroll folder had been left open in a private office while she was cleaning. She wasn't supposed to read it. She knew that. But one line caught her attention. Evelyn Price. The same name appeared beside a reimbursement dated 3 months after her supposed dismissal. Nia leaned closer. Then she saw another former employee. Then another. Each had received payments long after leaving. The amounts were almost identical. $18,400. $18,750. $18,400 again. Nia copied the dates onto a scrap of paper and placed the folder exactly where she found it. She did not take anything. She simply remembered. That evening, she searched the employee records for one of the names. The file was empty. She checked another. Empty. A third name produced a personnel number but no employment history. Nia sat back. "These people don't exist," she whispered. Then she noticed the payments were not coming from the household account. They were coming from a corporate account belonging to Hawthorne Meridian Group. That changed everything. The money wasn't disappearing from a billionaire's personal expenses. It was disappearing from a company worth billions. Nia wrote down the account number and folded the paper into her pocket. Then someone knocked on the office door. She turned. Caleb Voss stood there. He was the company's operations director, a polished man who had spent the entire day moving through the estate as if every room belonged to him. "You work quickly," Caleb said. Nia smiled politely. "I'm still learning." "You should be careful what you learn." She waited. Caleb glanced at the desk. "People sometimes mistake curiosity for intelligence," Nia replied. "And sometimes people mistake silence for ignorance." For the first time, his expression changed. Only slightly. Then he smiled. "Good evening, Miss Carter." He walked away. Nia remained still until she could no longer hear his footsteps. That night, she waited until the household was asleep. She returned to the office. The payroll folder was still there, but the page containing Evelyn's name was gone. Nia searched the surrounding files. Nothing. Then she noticed a tiny black storage drive sitting beneath the desk. It had not been there earlier. She picked it up. A folded piece of paper was taped beneath it. 3 words were written across the front. "Stop looking, Nia." She stared at her own name. Then the security lights switched on. Nia dropped the paper. Somewhere outside the office, a door clicked open. She rushed to the computer and inserted the drive. A single folder appeared. Inside were dozens of employee records. But the records were not normal. They showed people receiving payments under their own names while someone else had changed their banking information. Nia opened another file. It contained a list of dismissed employees. Beside each name was a date. Beside each date was a payment. And beside several payments was one identical note. "Transfer complete." Nia whispered, "They're stealing through the employees." The office lights went out. She heard footsteps. Then the computer screen came back on by itself. A message appeared. "You should have left this alone." Nia pulled the drive out. The door handle moved. She hid behind the curtain just as the door opened. The man entered and went straight to the desk. He didn't search randomly. He knew exactly where the records were. He opened the drawer. Nothing. He checked the computer. Nothing. Then he whispered, "She found it." Nia watched him leave. She waited until the hallway was silent before stepping out. The next morning, she went directly to Victor Hawthorne. Victor was Ethan's father and the owner of the company, but unlike his son, he did not raise his voice when challenged. He listened. Then he said, "You're telling me someone is using former employees to move corporate money?" "Yes. And you believe someone inside my company is doing it?" "I don't believe it anymore." Victor looked up. "I know it." She placed the copied dates on his desk. "I found these payments. I found people who don't appear to exist in the personnel system. Someone left me a storage drive containing altered employee records, and last night someone entered your private office looking for it." Victor studied her. "Why didn't you bring me the drive?" "Because the person who left it knew my name." Victor's face hardened. "Did you see who entered?" "No." "Then why should I believe it was connected?" Nia reached into her pocket. "Because of this." She placed a security log on the desk. Victor stared at it. The system showed no one had entered the office after midnight. Nia said, "I was inside when the person entered." Victor looked up sharply. "The log says the room was empty." "Exactly." The office door opened. Ethan walked in. "What is this?" Victor handed him the log. Ethan read it. "This proves nothing." Nia looked at him. "It proves someone can alter your security records." Ethan threw the paper onto the desk. "You've been here one day, and you've been here your whole life," Nia replied. "That doesn't make you right." Victor raised a hand. "Enough." Silence filled the office. Victor looked at Nia. "Show me the payments." She did. He looked at each name. Then his expression changed. "That's impossible." "Why?" Victor pointed to one of the names. "That employee died 6 months ago." Nia stared at him. "That is the payment I found this morning." Victor picked up the paper again. "Then someone isn't simply stealing money." He looked toward the locked office door. "Someone is using the dead to hide it." That was the first major reveal. And if you're following the story, remember the black drive, because the files on it are the one piece of evidence that will eventually prove who was controlling the entire operation. Victor ordered an immediate review of the company accounts. Within an hour, the first report arrived. Millions had been moved through employee reimbursement channels over the previous 2 years. Ethan stared at the figures. "That can't be right." Victor replied, "It is." Nia noticed something else. "Look at the approval column." Ethan leaned closer. His name appeared beside several transactions. He went completely still. "I didn't approve these." Victor looked at him. "Your authorization is attached to every one." "I told you I didn't approve them." Nia took the report. "When were these processed?" The investigator answered, "Mostly late at night." Ethan shook his head. "I was never here." Nia checked the dates. Then she looked at him. "Where were you on March 14th? Ethan frowned. "I was in Chicago." Victor turned toward him. "Are you sure?" "Yes." Nia pointed at the transaction. This payment was approved at 11:43 p.m. from this estate. Ethan looked at the screen. Someone had used his credentials while he was hundreds of miles away. For the first time, Ethan's anger disappeared. He whispered, "Someone is using my name." Nia nodded. "And your reputation." Ethan looked at her. "What does that mean?" "It means everyone already believes you're capable of treating employees badly." She placed the report on the table. "So when money disappears under your authorization, nobody needs much convincing." Victor slowly looked between them. The room fell silent. Then Ethan's phone vibrated. A new transaction notification appeared. Another reimbursement had just been approved, using Ethan's credentials. At that exact moment, Ethan stared at the screen. "I haven't touched my computer." Nia looked at Victor. Victor reached for the phone. "Then whoever did this knows exactly what we're doing." The screen refreshed. The transaction amount changed. Then another notification appeared. This one contained a message. "Stop looking, or the next name will be yours." Nia looked at the words. Then she looked toward the hallway. Someone inside the house was still watching them. And now they knew the investigation had begun. Nia did not touch the phone. She looked at the message again, then at Victor, and finally at Ethan. "Don't answer it," she said. Ethan frowned. "Why?" "Because that's what they want." Victor slowly lowered the phone. "What do you mean?" "They want us angry. They want us to accuse each other. They want us moving before we know where the trap is." Ethan looked toward the hallway. "So what do we do?" Nia picked up the financial report. "We stop telling everyone what we're investigating." Victor nodded. From that moment, the investigation became smaller. No company-wide audit was announced. No employee was questioned. No meeting was scheduled. Victor told his legal team only that several reimbursement accounts required review, and he instructed them not to mention Ethan's name. Nia kept the black drive hidden. The strange thing was that the threats stopped. For almost 6 hours, nothing happened. Then a message appeared in Victor's private inbox. Contained a single document. Ethan's employment file. Victor opened it. Someone had highlighted every disciplinary complaint against his son from the previous 3 years. There were 11. Nia read through them. "Most of these are real," Ethan said quietly. Victor looked at him. "You've been warned about this before." "I know." "Then why didn't you change?" Ethan stared at the floor. "Because nobody ever made me." Nia looked at him. "That is exactly why someone could use you." Ethan's jaw tightened. "You think I deserve this?" "No," Nia said. "But I think you made yourself useful to whoever is behind it." The words landed harder than an accusation. Victor looked at the reports again. Every complaint involved an employee who later disappeared from the payroll system. Nia noticed the dates. She compared them with the reimbursement records. Then she saw the pattern. "These aren't random." Victor leaned closer. "What are you seeing?" Every time one of these employees questioned a payment, Ethan had a confrontation with them within days. Ethan shook his head. "I didn't know anything about the payments." "I know." Nia pointed to another column. "But someone knew how you'd react." She traced the dates with her finger. "They didn't need you to steal the money. They needed you to create fear around anyone who got close to it." Ethan stared at the page. "So I've been helping them, without knowing it." He leaned back. "That's worse." Nia didn't answer. Victor stood and walked toward the window. "My company has auditors, lawyers, security specialists, and an entire executive board." He turned around. "And a maid found this in less than 2 days." Nia looked down. "I found it because people were too afraid to speak." Victor nodded slowly. "That may be the most embarrassing thing I've heard in this house." Before anyone could respond, the office door opened. Caleb Voss stepped inside. He carried a tablet and wore the same calm expression he had worn the previous evening. "I was told there was an emergency." Victor looked at him. "There is." Caleb glanced at Ethan, then at Nia, then back to Victor. "What happened?" Victor said, "Someone accessed Ethan's credentials." Caleb's expression remained unchanged. "That is serious." Nia watched his hands. He wasn't surprised. He wasn't even curious. He was waiting. Caleb placed the tablet on the desk. "I may have found something." Ethan stepped forward. "What?" Caleb turned the screen toward them. A series of transaction approvals appeared, all connected to Ethan. "I pulled these from the internal system," Caleb said. "They appear to show that Mr. Hawthorne authorized the reimbursements personally." Ethan stared at him. You just said someone accessed my credentials. Caleb shrugged. I said that was possible. I didn't say it happened. Nia stepped closer. Where did you get these records? Operations has access. Who else has access? Caleb looked at her. Why? Because the records you just showed us were not available to the finance team. Caleb smiled. I oversee operations. That's part of my responsibility. Nia noticed a small detail on the screen. A timestamp. She pointed at it. This report was generated 6 minutes ago. Yes. Then why does it contain a transaction that was supposedly archived yesterday? Caleb didn't answer immediately. Victor looked at him. Caleb finally said, the system updates continuously. Nia shook her head. Archive transactions don't update continuously. Caleb's smile disappeared. Victor reached for the tablet. Leave it with me. Caleb hesitated. Then he handed it over. Of course. He walked out. The moment the door closed, Ethan whispered, You don't trust him. Nia looked at Victor. I don't trust anyone with access I can't independently verify. Victor looked at the tablet. Then we verify everything. They started with the employee records. The investigator found something strange. The fake employees weren't created in the payroll system. They were created through the operations database. That meant someone had entered them before finance ever saw their names. Nia asked, Who can create an employee without HR approval? The investigator hesitated. Normally, no one. Normally, there is an emergency administrator account. Victor's eyes narrowed. Who controls it? The investigator looked uncomfortable. Operations. Nia looked at Ethan. Ethan whispered, Caleb. The investigator shook his head. It's not assigned to him personally. Then whose name is on it? Victor asked. The investigator opened the record. The account belonged to an old executive who had retired 4 years earlier. Victor stared at the name. That man hasn't had access to this company since before the pandemic. Nia looked at the login history. Then someone revived his account. The investigator checked the security logs. His face changed. What? He pointed at the screen. The account was activated from the estate. Victor asked, When? The investigator gave him the time. Nia remembered it immediately. That was the night Evelyn was fired. Ethan looked at her. Are you saying Evelyn was fired because she saw someone using the account? Nia shook her head. I'm saying someone may have needed her gone before she could identify them. The room became silent. Then Victor said, Find Evelyn. They called her. No answer. They called again. Still nothing. Nia looked at the number. Maybe she's afraid. Victor said. Then we give her a reason to talk. He authorized an independent investigator to locate her. Before the investigator could leave, another alert appeared. A company account had just initiated a transfer. The amount was enormous. Victor stood. Freeze it. The investigator tried. Someone already moved it. To where? He stared at the screen. An international holding account. Victor's face hardened. Can we reverse it? Not immediately. Nia asked. Whose account? The investigator opened the destination details. Corporate trust. No individual name. Victor frowned. Who owns the trust? The investigator searched the registration. Then he stopped. This is strange. What? The trust is protected by a private family office structure. Victor said. Whose? The investigator looked at him. It's connected to people who have been trying to buy a controlling interest in your company. Nobody spoke. Ethan slowly sat down. So this isn't just theft. Nia shook her head. No. Victor looked at the financial records. Someone wants the company. The realization changed everything. The money wasn't the final prize. It was a weapon. Someone was trying to weaken Hawthorne Meridian Group, make the company look unstable, and then step in when its value collapsed. Nia suddenly remembered the black drive. She reached into her apron. I think we should look at this again. Victor stared at the drive. Where did you get that? From the office. She connected it to an isolated computer. A folder appeared. Inside were employee records, then payment instructions, then security access logs, then a document titled Continuity Strategy. Nia opened it. The document described how internal conflict could be used to force a leadership change during a financial crisis. Ethan read the first page. They planned this. Victor continued reading. His face tightened. Then Nia saw something that made her stop. A list of employees appeared on the final page. Beside each name was a status. Dismissed, transferred, silenced. Ethan looked at her. What does that mean? I don't know. Nia opened the next file. It contained photographs of former employees. Some had been followed after leaving the company. Others had been offered money to remain silent. Then she found Evelyn. Her photograph had a red mark beside it. Ethan stood. She's in danger. Victor immediately ordered security to find her. But Nia was already looking at another file. This one contained access records. And one name appeared more often than any other. Caleb Voss. Ethan stared at the screen. We have him. Nia shook her head. Not yet. Why not? Because this could be exactly what he wants us to find. Victor looked at her. What do you mean? Nia pointed to the files. Someone knew we would search these records. She opened another folder. Every suspicious document had been organized neatly. Too neatly. It looks planted. Victor's expression changed. So we're being led toward Caleb. Nia nodded. Which means we need to know who benefits if we accuse him. Ethan suddenly remembered something. Wait. They looked at him. Caleb isn't the only person who can access the operations system. Victor asked. Who else? Ethan swallowed. My father's private office manager. Victor stared at him. Why would she have access? She handles executive scheduling, document transfers, and private communications. Nia asked. Could she access security? No. Ethan paused. But she could know when everyone is away. Nia looked at Victor. That was enough. Someone didn't need access to every system personally. They only needed to know when the right person would be absent. Nia checked the timestamps again. The fraudulent approvals had happened when Ethan was away. The security alterations had happened when Victor was in meetings. The employee dismissals had happened when Caleb was present. Every person in the chain had been manipulated into covering another person's actions. Then Nia saw something else. A luxury asset register. Victor's private collection of high-value watches, art, and bearer instruments was listed in the same database as the corporate assets. Nia frowned. Why is this here? Victor walked closer. That shouldn't be in the operations system. She opened the file. One asset was marked as collateral against an emergency credit facility. Victor's face changed immediately. That watch isn't collateral. What is it? A private family asset. Nia looked at the record. Someone had pledged it to secure a loan. Victor whispered, if that loan defaults, they can legally seize it. Nia stared at the screen. They're using your private assets to make the company look overleveraged. Victor nodded. And if the company collapses, the buyer gets everything. Ethan looked toward the door. Then we need to confront Caleb. Nia shook her head. No. Ethan frowned. Why? Because whoever is behind this expects us to do exactly that. Victor understood. We need a trap. Nia looked at the clock. Then let's give them one. They created a false audit notice. It stated that a specific account would be reviewed at 9 the next morning. Only 4 people knew about the supposed audit. Victor, Ethan, Nia, and 1 investigator. The account was intentionally left vulnerable. Nothing happened for 2 hours. Then the investigator's computer beeped. The account changed. Nia stepped forward. When? 30 seconds ago. Victor asked. What changed? The destination account. Nia looked at the screen. Whoever changed it knew about the audit. Ethan whispered. So one of the 4 leaked it. Victor looked at everyone in the room. Then another notification appeared. The transfer had already begun. Nia checked the access trail. Her face tightened. It's coming from inside the estate. Victor reached for the security phone. Lock every exit. The investigator shouted. Wait. Everyone turned. He was staring at another screen. The person accessing the account isn't using Caleb's credentials. Nia stepped closer. Whose are they? The investigator slowly turned the monitor toward them. The name appeared. It belonged to someone none of them had suspected. Victor stared at it. Ethan stopped breathing. And Nia realized the investigation had just crossed into a far more dangerous place. Because the person moving the money was not outside the room. They were already inside it. If you're enjoying the mystery, stay with this story, because the next part reveals who was actually controlling the operation and why Ethan's cruelty was so important to the plan. The investigator refreshed the screen. The account was still moving. Victor looked at the door. Then someone outside shouted that a security gate had just opened. Nia turned toward the hallway. Someone was leaving. The name on the screen belonged to Caleb Voss. Ethan stared at it and said, "Then why did you say it wasn't his?" The investigator shook his head. "I said it wasn't his credentials. Someone used an administrative access route." Nia looked at the timestamp. "Can you trace the physical terminal?" "I can try." "Don't try," Victor said. "Do it." The investigator moved quickly. Nia watched the screen as the system followed the access path through 3 separate security layers. The first pointed to the operations office. The second pointed to a maintenance terminal. The third stopped at a restricted network bridge. Victor asked, "What does that mean?" "It means someone is bouncing the access through another system." Nia looked at him. "Can you identify the final device?" The investigator shook his head. "Not yet." Then another alarm sounded. A security gate at the rear of the estate had opened. Ethan turned toward the door. "That's Caleb," Victor said. "How do you know?" "Because he's the only executive who knows the rear access schedule." Nia grabbed the black drive. "Then we don't chase him." Ethan looked at her. "What?" "We follow the money." The investigator checked the transfer. "It hasn't completed. Can we stop it?" "Not without triggering a cancellation that could alert whoever is controlling it." Victor looked at Nia. "What do you suggest?" "Let it continue." Ethan stared at her. "You want to let them steal millions?" "No. I want them to show us where they're sending it." The investigator nodded. "If we keep the connection alive, I can capture the destination." Victor looked at the clock. "Do it." The transfer continued. 1 million, then 3, then 7. The destination account remained hidden behind a private family office structure. Nia recognized the name from the black drive. "The trust." Victor nodded. "The one connected to the investors." The investigator opened the ownership records. A second layer appeared. Then a third. Finally, the ultimate beneficiary appeared. Caleb Voss. Ethan stepped back. "So it really is him." Nia shook her head. "Now we have a destination. We still need the reason." Victor looked at the files. "Find everything." They searched the black drive again. This time, Nia noticed a folder hidden inside another folder. The title was simply Continuity. She opened it. The first document contained a financial projection. It showed Hawthorne Meridian Group losing value after a series of controlled scandals, employee complaints, executive disputes, and emergency loans. The second document showed the same company after a forced leadership transition. The projected acquisition price was less than half the company's real value. Victor stared at the numbers. "He planned to buy my company after breaking it." Nia nodded. "And Ethan was part of the strategy." Ethan looked confused. "How?" Nia opened another file. It contained internal notes about him. One sentence had been highlighted. "Maintain pressure on staff through existing executive behavior." Ethan read it twice. "They wanted me to keep acting like this." "Yes. They knew I'd do it." Nia looked at him. "They counted on it." Victor closed his eyes for a moment. "My son was never the mastermind." Nia replied, "No, he was the perfect distraction." Ethan looked at the employee list. "Those people lost their jobs because of me." "They lost their jobs because someone used your behavior to make their complaints disappear," Nia said. "But you still made the choices." Ethan nodded. "I know." For once, he did not argue. A sound came from the corridor. Footsteps. Victor looked at the door. The investigator checked the security feed. "Caleb is back." Ethan stepped toward the door. Nia stopped him. "Don't confront him." Ethan looked at her. "Why?" "Because we need him to talk." Victor understood immediately. They closed the files and returned the computer to its original state. Nia removed the black drive. The investigator disconnected the monitoring equipment. Then Victor told Ethan to leave the room. Ethan frowned. "Why?" "Because Caleb believes you are the problem." Ethan understood. "If he thinks I'm still angry, he'll underestimate us." Victor nodded. "Exactly." Ethan walked into the hallway. Seconds later, Caleb appeared. He looked irritated. "Why was the rear gate opened?" Ethan turned. "I was checking security." Caleb studied him. "You shouldn't interfere with security operations." Ethan stepped closer. "Then maybe you should explain why money is disappearing from my father's company." Caleb's expression hardened. "I've already shown you the evidence. You showed me what you wanted me to see." Caleb smiled faintly. You're becoming paranoid. Ethan lowered his voice. Maybe. Then he walked away. Caleb watched him disappear. Nia remained hidden inside the office. Caleb entered. He closed the door. Then he went straight to the computer. He didn't hesitate. He opened the operation system and checked the account. His fingers moved quickly. The investigator silently captured everything. Caleb then opened a second application. A message appeared. Proceed with final transfer. Caleb typed a response. Family conflict remains stable. Proceed. Nia's eyes widened. She now had proof. But Caleb suddenly stopped. He looked toward the curtain. Nia froze. Caleb walked toward it. Then his phone rang. He answered. Yes. A voice spoke on the other end. Caleb listened. His expression changed. What do you mean the account is frozen? Nia knew the trap had worked. Caleb turned toward the computer. The investigator remotely locked the transfer. Caleb slammed his hand against the desk. Who froze it? He looked at the screen. Then he understood. Someone had been watching him. He grabbed the black storage compartment beneath the desk. It was empty. Caleb whispered. No. He turned toward the door. Victor stood there. 2 security officers were behind him. Caleb stepped backward. You have no idea what you're doing. Victor looked at him. I know exactly what you're doing. Caleb laughed. You think this ends with me? Victor replied. No. He held up the investigator's recording. It ends with evidence. Caleb's smile disappeared. You'll destroy the company. No, Victor said. You tried to. Caleb looked at Ethan. You think you're innocent? Ethan said nothing. Caleb stepped closer. I gave you exactly what you wanted. Ethan frowned. What are you talking about? Power. Caleb's voice hardened. You wanted people afraid of you. I simply made sure their fear was useful. Ethan stared at him. Caleb continued. Every employee you threatened became easier to remove. Every complaint you ignored became another piece of cover. Every time you lost your temper, I gained another layer of protection. Ethan looked down. You used me. Caleb smiled. You used yourself. The room went quiet. Victor stepped forward. And the money? Caleb looked at him. Insurance. Against what? Against people like you. Victor's face tightened. Caleb's confidence finally cracked. You built a company where everyone depended on you. I simply proved what happens when the foundation is removed. The security officers took him into custody. But the investigation did not end with his arrest. It uncovered something Ethan could not escape. Caleb had manipulated the system. But Ethan had created the environment Caleb exploited. Former employees came forward. One described being threatened with dismissal after asking about an unexplained deduction. Another said she had stayed silent because she believed Ethan would destroy her career. Evelyn returned 2 days later. She stood in Victor's office and placed her old access badge on the desk. I kept this because I knew one day somebody would ask what happened. Victor looked at her. What happened? Evelyn glanced at Ethan. He made us afraid. Ethan lowered his head. Evelyn continued. And someone else used that fear. Ethan looked at her. I am sorry. Evelyn shook her head. Don't apologize to me if you're going to become the same man again next month. Ethan nodded. You're right. She looked surprised. Ethan continued. I can't undo what I did. But I can make sure nobody working here has to fear me again. Victor announced the company's reforms that same week. Financial approvals were divided between separate departments. Security access was removed from financial administration. Employee complaints would go directly to an independent compliance team. No executive could dismiss an employee who had raised a financial concern without an external review. And every whistleblower would have protected status. Victor asked Nia to lead the new compliance function. She stared at him. I'm a housekeeper. Victor smiled. You were a housekeeper who noticed what everyone else ignored. Nia hesitated. I don't know if I belong there. You already proved that you do. She accepted. Months passed. The company recovered. The suspicious funds were traced and recovered where possible. The acquisition plan collapsed. Caleb's network was exposed through the records he had tried to hide. But Nia cared about something smaller. The staff no longer whispered when executives walked past. They spoke. They asked questions. They reported problems. And Ethan changed in ways that could not be faked by an apology. One afternoon, a young employee accidentally dropped an expensive crystal sculpture in the main hall. The crash echoed through the estate. Everyone stopped. The employee looked at Ethan. "I'm sorry." Ethan walked toward the broken pieces. Nia watched from the doorway. For a second, the old Ethan seemed ready to return. Then he crouched down. "Are you hurt?" The employee shook her head. "No." "Good." He looked at the broken glass. "We'll replace it." She stared at him. "You're not angry?" Ethan shook his head. "It was an object." The employee nodded slowly. Then she smiled. "Thank you." Ethan stood. As he walked away, Nia followed him. "You handled that well." He looked at her. "I used to think people respected me because they were afraid of me. And now I think fear only teaches people to hide the truth." Nia nodded. Ethan looked down the hallway. "I nearly lost everything because I thought being powerful meant nobody could question me." He paused. "You were the first person here who did." Nia smiled. "I wasn't the last." He looked toward the staff. "No." For the first time, the house was quiet without feeling dangerous. Victor found Nia near the entrance that evening. He looked across the hall. "It feels different." Nia nodded. "It is." Victor smiled. "Do you know what we actually saved? The company?" "No." He looked toward the staff. "The people." Nia understood. The stolen money could be counted. The damaged accounts could be repaired. The company could recover its value. But fear had done something money could not measure. It had taught good people to stay silent. That was the real damage. And that was the part the Hawthorne family finally chose to repair. Ethan had not become a better man because he was innocent. He became a better man because he finally accepted that he was responsible for what he had done, even when someone else had used those choices for their own gain. Nia had not changed the house because she had more power than everyone else. She changed it because she was willing to notice what everyone else had learned to ignore. And when the next employee walked through those doors, she would not need to wonder whether speaking the truth would cost her everything. That was the victory, not the arrest, not the money, not even the survival of the company. It was the moment fear stopped being the price of belonging. If this story reminded you that real strength is not about controlling people but protecting their dignity, subscribe for more emotional stories about power, truth, and redemption, and watch the next story waiting on the channel. Because sometimes the person everyone overlooks is the one who sees the truth first.